Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by my good friend and also esteemed colleague, my man Jeff Howe. We continue our portal previews, talking about some of the best players that will be going into the transfer portal and how those guys may fit what Texas wants to do in 2026. And today, it is a much talked about college football player we'll get into is Cam Coleman. Talk about the wide receiver market a little bit. Thank you to our friends over at Advanced Pain Care. We'll give you a special message from them later on in this program. But first, Jeff, let's dive right into it. Cam Coleman, when it becomes official right now, being reported that he's going to hit the transfer portal, there's no doubt he will represent the top of the market in the wide receiver market. He'll be one of the most coveted players at the wide receiver position, which means he'll demand a whole lot of money. The question is, would a player of that ilk for Texas be worth it? Is he compatible with what Texas wants to do in your mind? And if Texas should pursue him, is it worth that investment, worth that time and the resources?
All right. I'll give you the case for. I think the case against we can lay it out pretty simple, but the case for to me is compelling. The case for is you almost have to disregard his raw numbers because of just how bad the Auburn quarterback situation was. I mean, they might have had the worst quarterback situation in the SEC. Like, I know LSU's offense was a catastrophe. South Carolina's offensive line was terrible, but I mean, quarterback situations, I don't know that it got worse than what Auburn was dealing with this year. When I look at Cam Coleman, if we're going with this theme, and Texas isn't the only school, I just want to reiterate this. Texas isn't the only school that's going all in on 2026, right? I think everybody, you have to look at this as like a 12 to 13 month proposition. Yeah. Like, you can't look multiple years down the road. You can in some instances, but for the most part, you're building for the next year. If you're going all in, from a talent standpoint, he gives you probably the best wide receiver room in the country. I think he's that good. He's that talented. When you combine him with Wingo and Mosley and Livingston, and whether it's one of the freshmen, rising sophomores or whoever it is, you're going to have one of the best, probably the most talented receiver room in the country with Coleman. The case for two. I also think if you add him, your need at running back, you still need running back from the portal. But I don't think your need to get a legitimate, like, 1,200-yard caliber back, like bona fide stud number one running back. I think it eases a little bit because you're going to be that good at wide receiver. It'll take some of the pressure off your run game. So, and again, I'm just making the case for it. Not saying this is going to happen or Texas will do this. I'm just making the case for it. The other part I'm making the case for is, Rod, when you look at his numbers against man coverage, when we talk about this Texas offense, I go, well, hey, where does his passing game need to grow? Where does the receiver position need to grow? You got to get guys that are really good against man coverage. And again, Cam Coleman in 12 games, only 18 targets working against man coverage. But on those 18 targets, 14 catches, 163 yards, 2 touchdowns. Average depth of target, 13.4 yards, 2.26 yards per route run. Contested catches, 3 contested catches, 3 contested targets, 3 contested catches. So, he's one of, if you extrapolate that through with a competent quarterback, he's probably one of the more productive receivers in the country against man coverage. So that, to me, is the compelling argument for it. Now, Rod, I don't know if you got an argument for, but obviously, to me, the argument against is that is a lot of money to allocate to one player when you've got multiple needs in the portal.
I agree. I think the most compelling point you made was the how he does versus man coverage. One of my big complaints for Sark wide receivers, and this goes all the way back to Xavier Worthy, because Xavier Worthy wasn't necessarily great versus man coverage. You go look at yards per route run versus man coverage. Usually that's your most right now your most accurate measurement or metric for determining wide receiver efficiency. He was 1.79 yards per route run versus man coverage. That's not bad, but it's not elite by any stretch of the imagination. There are lots of other wide receivers around the country. You can look at the elite numbers. Lamone, who won the Blitnikoff, versus man, he's at 3.26 to give you a little bit perspective on that. Matthew Golden, 0.92 yards per route run versus man. Isaiah Bond was 0.86. Wingo 1.86 yards per route versus man. So not bad, but not elite. But you're right about Coleman. He's at 2.26 yards per route run versus man, which is much better. So I think that would be the most compelling point, that you could find a way to manipulate defenses into man coverage and then let that guy just go win. But I've said it for years, and you know how I feel about wide receiver. I think it's the deepest position in football at any level, high school, college, or pro. I think there are a lot of different stats to be able to prove that too. And if you're at Texas, Sark has done a good job of finding value at the wide receiver position. You just did with Emmett Mosley. That's another guy that's giving you great value. I don't know what you pay for Emmett Mosley, but I know when the top of the wide receiver market. I don't know what you pay for Matthew Golden. I know when the top of the wide receiver market. And Isaiah Bond's another guy. I think you found good value there at the wide receiver market. So I think that's where Texas has found value. If they want to go all in, I totally understand them saying, you know what, we want two guys who could classify as number ones. We'll get a Wingo, and we'll also have a guy like Cam Coleman. But I would say, other than Cam Coleman's elite physical traits, and he's got some fantastic, he's Tuesday as a wide receiver. I'm talking about 6'3", over 200 pounds. He's just a freak of nature physically. What part of his actual game and production has been elite?
That's the thing. You're banking on the talent. You're banking on the presence of Arch Manning elevating his game, because it's really tough, because again, I just go back to the quarterback situation at Auburn and just how bad it was. Like, Jackson Arnold wasn't very good, and I know they played kind of musical chairs toward the end of the year. That offense wasn't conducive, and it's not like it was just teams just rolling coverage inside. I mean, between Eric Singleton, they had some really good receivers on that team. It's just their quarterback situation was just abysmal. The case against two is obviously, I think, from a fiscal standpoint, Cam Coleman's probably going to cost you, let's just say, between $2 and $2.5 million. Like, if you're talking about the legitimate number one wide receiver in the portal, like, that's probably what he's going to cost you. Can you take that $2.5 million and get you a number one running back and a slot receiver and either a number two running back or just kind of a guy in that, we talk about that Jaden Blue, Keelan Robinson role. In other words, can you take that money that you would allocate to one player and maybe turn it into three players that can do a better job of helping your offense have just as much of an impact, and quite honestly, might not be as much reach? Look, I think Cam Coleman playing with a competent quarterback, the numbers are going to be there. But to your point, Rod, you're kind of rolling the dice because the production hasn't been there. We can talk about the quarterback issues all we want, but it's not like, hey, if you add this guy, it's guaranteed he's going to catch 80 balls for 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns, because it just hasn't been there for him yet.
If you go look at it, I don't like the yak yardage. If he comes in the Texas offense, he's probably going to be what A.D. Mitchell was, which is awesome, by the way. Yeah. That's fantastic. A.D. Mitchell was a touchdown maker for you, touchdown scorer, and a man beater for you a lot of times when teams wanted to either roll coverage or they wanted to double up on Xavier Worthy. But Sark likes yak daddies, as I like to call them, guys who can get that yak yardage after the catch. He's only got 119 yards after the catch. This season, last year was 127. So that's not really his game. Also, something that's compatible with Sark's offense. This is a guy that's just, he's a contested catch guy. I love his contested catch rate. It's one of those elite traits that he has. 57% contested catch rate on the season. So I do love that about his game. And I think that's where he would translate for Texas. Contested catches down the field, beating one-on-one, man-to-man coverage, as you pointed out too. And I think he would give you the ability to be able to manipulate defenses into picking a poison. You're either going to double that guy or you're going to double Wingo. You got to pick your poison. You can't double both. Like I said, is he worth $2 million? If that is the price tag, I would probably look for more value at the wide receiver position. And I like what you said. You might want to look for another Auburn wide receiver there.
People may not agree with it, but Texas, to your point, Rod, they've been really smart about some of these moves, because the two guys I think about, O'Shawn Mathis, I think that may have been one of the first or second portal cycle, and Dominic Williams, both guys out of TCU, one ended up going to Nebraska, one ended up going to Oklahoma. And it got to a point where, hey, yeah, you really want these guys, but the price tag gets to a point where you have to sit down and decide, if we do this, are we going to get a return on our investment that's going to make us feel like we made the right move? And they decided in both those situations that was not it. And you look at the receiver thing, period. And this is why I think Texas, and we've talked about this on the channel a lot, their plan of attack is going to be interior offensive line and running back. And to your point, I think Sark looks at it and says, you know what? I can go I'll let everybody have their pick. You go overspend for top wide receivers.
Yep.
I'll go get a bargain bin fine, and he'll be exactly what we need. He'll fit the role. He'll make our offense better. And while everybody's duking it out, battling it out for wide receivers over, hey, you're going to pay $2 million, 2.25, 2.5, whatever it is, we're going to go lock up our interior offensive line, which, by the way, even though they are going to command some money, guards are going to be cheaper than wide receivers in the portal, and you're going to focus your attention on running back. So, I think for the money that you would spend on Cam Coleman, you can take that money and add several pieces to your offense that at the end of the day are going to make you just as good of an offense and probably better considering you're going to address more positional needs.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting conversation. Like I said, I can't wait to see what Texas decides to do because it's going to be fascinating to watch this whole thing play out. All right, great stuff, Jeff, as always. Before we end things, let's thank our sponsor, our friends over at Advanced Pain Care, with a message from two legendary Lifetime Longhorns.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
All right, thank you to our friends at Advanced Pain Care. Thank you, Jeff. Great stuff as always. And thank you to Matthew behind the scenes, the real MVP, twisting and tweaking it out. And thanks to each and every one of you for watching and for listening. For Jeff and for Matthew, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.